5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is High Point Mayor Jay Wagner, welcoming anyone who's present or listening online to our 4 o'clock special meeting. Today is April 3rd, 2023. Anybody who's listening online, also welcome to the meeting. Purpose of this meeting, we're going to talk about a couple of things, our citizen survey and some information regarding the senior center, which I think we're now calling the Center for Active Adults. And then we have a hopefully short attorney-client privilege closed session. And so calling the meeting to order. So far, I'm present here at City Hall, as is Mayor Pro Tem Wesley Hudson, Councilman Williams, Jones, and Jefferson. So we do have a quorum present, and we'll go ahead and begin the meeting. And whoever's up first, come to the podium. Hello, sir.
Hello. Good afternoon, Mayor, members of the council. Steve Haverlook, the Budget and Performance Manager. Every 2 years, the city conducts a citizen survey. We contract with the ETC Institute to complete this survey, and Jason Murado, representing the ETC Institute, is here to present the findings from our 2022 citizen survey.
Thanks. Well, good afternoon. My name is Jason Murado. I'm with ETC Institute, and we're a marketing research firm that specializes in conducting community surveys for local governments. And we just recently finished, for the 9th time, conducting a resident satisfaction survey for the city of High Point. So today I'm going to walk through the results. The full report is very detailed and comprehensive. So today I'm going to walk through the key findings from the survey. I just have one slide about ETC Institute. We're based in the Kansas City area, but we're a national leader in providing market research for local governments. We've been doing this type of work for over 40 years. And in the last 10 years alone, we've conducted surveys in more than 1,000 communities across the country. And that includes a lot of communities throughout the state of North Carolina. So this is really the type of work that we specialize in. This is just a quick rundown of what I'll go through today. We'll look at the purpose and methodology of the survey. We'll look at what we learned from conducting the survey. And then I'll go through the major survey findings, and I'll be happy to answer any questions as well. So there are several reasons to conduct a survey like this. One is to get an objective assessment of how satisfied residents are with major city services, and also to determine what residents feel are the top priorities for the community. We're also able to measure trends from your previous surveys. Most of the questions remain the same each time we conduct the survey, so that we can measure trends over time. And then we're also able to compare your results with other communities across the country. So this survey was 7 pages long. That's a typical length for a community survey like this. As I mentioned, this is the 9th time we've conducted your community survey, most recently in 2020. The survey was administered by a combination of mail and online to randomly selected residents throughout the city. And that's our standard methodology for these types of surveys. We had a good response to the survey. We ended up with 454 completed surveys. Our goal was to receive at least 400. And the results of the 454 surveys at the 95% level of confidence has a margin of error of plus or minus 4.6%. Essentially, that means that if we conducted this survey the same way 100 times, 95 times the results would be plus or minus about 4.5% from what we're reporting. So even for a statistically valid survey, the results are never perfect, but the margin of error is very small. So here we have a map of the city. The red dots are households that completed a survey. So we had a good distribution throughout the city. And this is similar to what we've had on your previous surveys. And as we were administering the survey, we made sure that the demographics of survey respondents reflect the actual population of the city, especially for those key demographic areas such as race and ethnicity, age, and gender. So here's what we learned from the survey. We found that the city's moving in the right direction. Satisfaction ratings have either increased or stayed the same in 70 out of 113 areas since we last conducted the survey in 2020. Most cities that we've surveyed over the past year have had a lot more decreases than increases in satisfaction. So this goes against the trend of what we've been seeing in a good way. When we compared your results to other communities, You rated 15 percentage points above the U.S. average for the overall quality of city services. And that's one of the most important questions on the survey, because here we're asking residents to take into account all the services that you're providing and really give an overall satisfaction rating for how well you're doing. And then one of the areas where you rated the farthest above the U.S. average is customer service from city employees, where you were 31 percentage points above the U.S. average. We found that the top overall priorities are city streets, sidewalks, and infrastructure, economic development, police services, enforcing codes and ordinances, and traffic flow. And these are similar to the top priorities we had on your last survey. And then we asked residents, what are the most important reasons when deciding where to live? And the top reasons were safety and security, quality of housing, and quality of health care. So first, we'll look at some general perceptions residents have of the city. Here we asked residents to rate their perceptions in a number of different ways. The dark blue are ratings of excellent, the light blue is good, the neutral is, the gray is neutral, and we interpret neutral as meeting expectations or average. It's a rating of a 3 on the 5-point scale. And then the pink and red are ratings of below average or poor. So overall, the positive ratings far outweigh the negative. If you look at the top row, 66% of respondents rated the overall quality of city services as either excellent or good, compared to only 10% who gave a rating of below average or poor. So you've got more than a 6-to-1 ratio of positive to negative responses for the overall quality of city services, which is a very good ratio. Typically, that ratio is more around 4 or 5 to 1. This was the very first question on the survey. Here we asked residents to rate major categories of city services. So here we're asking residents to rate these areas at the big picture, departmental level. And then later on in the survey, we asked about some more specific areas within some of these categories. So again, the blue are the positive, the pink and red are the negative. Overall, the positive ratings far outweigh the negative. The lowest rated area was streets, sidewalks, and infrastructure, which is the bottom row. But even for that, you had 42% of respondents who gave positive ratings compared to 32% who gave negative. And if you look at the top of the chart, you can see the highest rated areas are fire services, library services, parks and recreation, trash recycling and yard waste, police services, electrical utility services, and customer service. So we saw that satisfaction with the overall quality of customer service is very high. We also asked respondents about their interaction with city employees, and you can see residents have had very, very positive interactions with city employees. If you look at this top row, over 90% of respondents said that city employees are always or usually courteous and polite. Most also gave positive ratings to employees giving prompt, accurate, and complete answers to questions, and doing what they said they would in a timely manner. So here we have a map of the city, and what we did here is we broke the results out by census block group. So these are fairly small areas, and this tells us if residents in different parts of the city are rating services differently. Sometimes what happens is, even if the results are very positive overall, once you break it into these smaller geographic areas, you might see some areas where residents are not as satisfied as people in other parts of the city. This map's for the overall quality of city services, and the entire map is blue. So this tells us that residents in all parts of the city are satisfied with the overall quality of city services, and it also means you're doing a great job providing services equally throughout all parts of the city. For our report, we create a map like this for every question on the survey, asked on a 5-point scale. So there's over 100 maps in the report. This is just for overall satisfaction of city services. So I mentioned earlier that the city's moving in the right direction. Since your last survey a couple of years ago, satisfaction ratings have increased in 58 areas, stayed the same in 12, and decreased in 43 areas. As I mentioned, this goes against the trend of what we've been seeing recently. Recently, most cities have had a lot more decreases than increases in satisfaction compared to a couple of years ago. Here are comparisons for major categories of city services. That gold bar are the satisfaction ratings for your last survey in 2020. The blue are the satisfaction ratings for this survey. So for most areas, the ratings are very similar to a couple of years ago. There are 3 areas that have had a significant increase in satisfaction, and by significant, I mean 5% or more improvement since the last survey. That includes library services, electrical utility services, and the appearance of city facilities. There aren't any areas that have had a significant decrease in satisfaction since your last survey. Now, here are the areas that have had the biggest increases in satisfaction since 2020. The amount and variety of books and materials in the library, the overall feeling of safety, the appearance of city facilities, the image of the city, cultural and recreational opportunities, public safety education programs, and then the High Point Museum programs and facilities. Now, here are the areas that have had the biggest decreases since your last survey. Leaf, yard waste, and brush removal services, the availability of affordable housing for purchase, and that's become a higher priority all over the country over the past year or two. The availability of elderly and handicapped van service, employees doing what they said they would in a timely manner. We saw a couple slides ago, the results are still very, very positive for that, but they have gone down a little bit over the past couple of years. Enforcing traffic laws, maintaining sidewalks, and street lighting. So when we compare your results to other communities, the results are very positive. This is again that question for major categories of city services. The gold bar here are the satisfaction ratings for residents from all across the country, the U.S. average. The light blue are the satisfaction ratings for residents in the Atlantic region. So that includes the state of North Carolina as well as surrounding states. And then the blue are the ratings for your survey. This is based on a national survey that ETC Institute conducts every 1 to 2 years. This is last conducted about a year ago. So you can see in most areas, your ratings are significantly above both the regional and national average, which is what the blue arrow indicates. One of the areas that especially stood out was about halfway down, customer service from city employees. You have a 72% satisfaction rating. And you can see both the regional and national average are only around 40%.
Can you go back to the previous slide?
Sure.
Lee, your team didn't have anything to do with conducting this survey, did you? No? Okay, it seems so high.
He handed them out.
I'm kidding.
He handed them out at the Parks and Rec Christmas party.
That's what it was, okay.
Just need to make sure, right?
Yeah, okay.
All right, so now we'll take a look at top priorities. So we saw in the first question on the survey, we asked how satisfied residents are with major city services. As a follow-up question, we asked which services should receive the most emphasis from city leaders over the next 2 years. So the top priority is maintaining streets, sidewalks, and infrastructure. 53% of respondents picked that as one of their top 3 most important. The other high priorities include economic development, police services, traffic flow, and then codes and ordinances. Now, this is something we call the important satisfaction analysis. This analysis is based on 2 different types of data. First, we ask residents how satisfied they are with services. And then as a follow-up, we ask which services are the most important for the city to emphasize. So the idea behind this is that those areas that have a combination of low satisfaction ratings, but at the same time are still rated as the most important by residents, should be the highest priorities to focus on. So this first table is for major city services. You can see in pink that very high priority is maintaining city streets, sidewalks, and infrastructure. Other high priority areas were economic development, enforcing codes and ordinances, and traffic flow. And then communication with the public and police services were the highest among the medium priority categories. They just missed being in that yellow category. These are the top priorities for neighborhood services. The highest priority here is the availability of affordable rental housing. That was the 3rd highest priority last time. This time it's 1st. The other high priorities were enforcing the repair of standardized housing, enforcing the removal of dilapidated housing, and enforcing the cleanup of junk and debris on private property. For transportation and roadway services, the highest priorities are maintaining major city streets as well as pedestrian walkways and sidewalks. The other highest priorities were the availability of elderly and handicapped van service, public transportation services, street lighting, and then maintaining neighborhood streets. And then for public safety and emergency services, the highest priority was efforts to reduce neighborhood street-level drugs, prostitution, and other crimes. Other highest priorities were visibility of police in neighborhoods, and then efforts to ensure the community is prepared for a natural disaster. And then for culture and recreation services, the highest priorities are recreation center and programs for adults and seniors, special events and festivals, how residents receive information about park and recreation programs, and then the availability of walking and biking trails in the city. So some other survey findings. We asked residents to rate the importance of various reasons that could impact where they decide to live. If you look at the top of this chart, 86% of respondents said that safety and security is very important in deciding where to live. Another 13% said somewhat important. The other most important reasons when deciding where to live were the quality of housing, quality health care, types of housing, and access to shopping. The top three were the highest priorities last time, but last time healthcare was second and housing was third. So those two have switched places, but the top three otherwise are the same. And then we asked residents to rate the importance of various city issues. So if you look at the top of the chart, the issues that were rated as the most important were providing incentives to attract and retain new retail development and restaurants, providing incentives to attract new full-time private sector jobs, and then providing incentives to attract and retain business and industries. So just a quick recap, we saw that things are moving in the right direction. Most areas have either increased or stayed the same in satisfaction compared to a couple of years ago. Your ratings are much higher than other communities when it comes to the overall quality of city services and then customer service from city employees. The top overall priorities, and these are similar to your last survey: street, sidewalks, and infrastructure, economic development, police services, enforcing codes and ordinances, and traffic flow. And then the top reasons that are the most important for residents when deciding where to live were safety and security, quality housing, and then quality of health care. So that is everything that I had. Overall, I think the results are very, very positive. And with that, if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Floor's open.
Oh, just,
Yeah.
You say 15%, 31% above the U.S. average on different areas, I mean, but,
for customer service?
yeah, and the other one,
Quality of service.
yeah, that's, where's the press when you need them? But I hope they, oh, okay. Okay, there you go. Just as long as somebody's recording it, I think that part needs to get out, though. Those are big numbers.
Yeah, it's kind of a repeat of what we've seen in the past, but our staff does a great job, and all of them, everybody deserves to be commended from the very top all the way down, for the job that y'all do. Because we have a very good professional staff, and but it's nice to get a report card like this, right? Yeah. So, anybody else with questions?
Yeah, I just want to echo that comment. Incredible job to everyone across the city. Sorry, I'm smiling at Lee because I'm still trying to figure out how in the world. No, I'm kidding. But seriously, kudos to the entire team. I think quality of service and customer service, we're all here to do a job for the residents and those who pay taxes and call High Point home or work here or whatever it is. And so us being able to do that is so important. It's also interesting in that when you look at where the high priorities show up and where folks want to see the investments being made, it gives confidence that we have our priorities, I think, aligned well based on what we saw here, where we are investing city funds. I didn't see anything here that said to me, oh crap, we're not investing in the right places. We're investing in infrastructure, we're investing in housing, we're investing in so many other things, economic development, things of that nature. So really great to see.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay, great. Thanks, everyone.
All right. So we'll move on and talk about the senior center. I'm old school. I'm saying senior center. Getting used to the new name.
What is the new name again?
It's active adults.
for active adults.
I'll tell you, it was probably that name
I
change.
mean, my son is 19 and he's active. I don't know if that fits.
Make it an acronym or something.
Yeah.
A long name.
So Kate calls me old, so I'm gonna say, Kate, I'm just a more active adult.
Active adult, that's right.
Lee, with those kind of ratings, I can only imagine if we'd have got that stand-up slide, how high we would have been. I can only imagine, man. We'd have been blowing him out of the water.
We'd have been top one instead of top
one.
three.
It's top three. We'd have been top one.
We'd have been top 2, but not
I was just going to tell you, Cyril, the numbers don't lie. You saw those up there, right?
Just give me 1 second, guys.
He's gonna be hearing about that stand-up
Senior center.
slide for the next 20 years.
Yeah, probably. How cool it would have been.
Yes, Seasoned Citizen Center, there you go.
The SCC.
You seem to be out of order. Because I don't have it on.
You don't have it on.
They're always mixed in with the false alcohol, but you don't want to know. But they'll wear your back out.
Okay, let's see here.
And then, mine's the big screen.
Should be.
All right, 1 second.
The wall there, the squeeze finish, little squeeze finish.
Yeah, it's showing it
The big ones will be in three pockets, and the kings will be in those.
should be there,
These
but
will be in fairly close.
Okay.
memo in the presentation.
Waiting for them to come down the river. Yeah. The redfish go up.
Just having some technical. Be right up in a second.
They're supposed to rain all week.
I need to, do I need to start?
Oh, in the mountains, mountain house.
You got a minute while they work on that stuff. So while they work on that,
You fish with a fly line?
can I request something of my council colleagues real quick?
Sure.
All right, I want to give y'all like 3 numbers.
All right, it's
19,
downloading
19,
right
4
now.
numbers, 19, 19, about 10 or 11, and 1. 19 days in a row was from the
It's downloading right now.
from pre-market to NLC for me. After this weekend, I'm going into another 19 consecutive
We'll figure out
days.
what happened later, but I think.
About 10 or 11 more council meetings, not including committees or such. Okay, yeah, none of that, just regular
I'm
council.
pitching a basket.
And so, and then we come down to 1. That's today. And looking at this, it looks like a short meeting. So I'm asking, can you hold off on the grandstanding? Give me 1 day. 1 day, so I can go home with
Keep your mouth shut.
any extra.
I was planning a 45 minutes.
Chris, I've already made it through half my jokes for
That's what
this.
made me say it.
I've only got half my other jokes. Lee's coming up. I was prepared for this, man. I've been thinking about this all
One
day.
day, and then I can live with it.
Saying you're an active adult, it's a little worn out.
I am a seasoned citizen,
It's just a blue PowerPoint
seasoned
presentation.
citizen center. That's what Jay came up with, and that's what I am, a seasoned citizen.
Throbbing headache.
You good?
Cheers.
This one?
No, it's still a server.
It's okay. It's okay.
Would it be another document in there? That's still all that server.
11 years ago. That was the look off.
That's it, that's it.
Here's that guy.
How would I pull that down from the arrows? Yep. Yeah, you didn't have to do the buildings. First slide.
Yep. Headaches.
Kind of like a headache. And
We could walk out of our.
Kind of like that. And then, is that where you want to start?
Yeah, is it gonna come up?
I had to come by I had to come by this way because they had a bunch of street closures going on. There's painting the intersection, there's painting signs, all that stuff. And so that can pose an issue in the morning. But I just wanted to come and see where we are.
Okay, I think he's got his
All right,
presentation. We'll
yeah, yeah, yes, I'm good, I'm good. Good afternoon.
Lee.
Yeah, good afternoon. Hope y'all are doing well. The reason for the name change is I had a pretty big birthday last year, and I didn't like it still being called Senior Center, so we're going to move on and start calling it the Center for Active Adults. Is that okay? We want to come to you guys today. I appreciate the time and talk to you about some research that we've done with a possible location for a new senior center. And want to kind of walk you guys through that process. I don't have many slides, just want to tell you where we are and get you guys input on what y'all think as we move forward. As you guys know, we've been providing recreational services for seniors or active adults for many years, since the 60s. For those of y'all who don't remember, our senior center was located on Hamilton Avenue Hamilton Street for many years, up until about 2021. And if you guys will recall, that's when we did sell that property to High Point University so that they could use it as really more of a parking lot for the Children's Museum. So when we did sell that to High Point University, we did enter into a lease with them to lease space to provide our recreational services for seniors at the Ocala Mall, and that's where we are now. If you guys will remember, we actually did move in July 21. That's when we were in the middle of the COVID vaccinations, and they were using that as a site. So we actually didn't get into that building until late in the year, really, of 2021. So we are operating on a 5-year lease for that building. We are not paying, I think we're paying $1 a year. I can't remember what we set up when Greg was involved. But anyway, we're getting that space. We're able to utilize that space right now. It is enough space to accommodate what we're doing. It is probably 30,000 square feet in there, so it's a lot of room to do what we're doing. So if you guys will recall, in 2019, this was one of 2 projects on the bond referendum, this one and City Lake Park. In 2021, we looked at some renderings. You guys may recall those renderings, and we were looking at a downtown location, so it was more of a 2-story type environment in downtown. Of course, we never moved forward on that, but I wanted to bring that back up because we have looked at some renderings before. Those are probably the renderings we used actually in the bond referendum package when we sent that out. So we moved forward then, and the plan was to complete City Lake Park before moving on with this project. And yes, I think we're done with City Lake Park. We should be done. We're almost there, but we have a few last minute things going on. But as you guys know, and with the opening in November and the spring and the pool this summer, we are done with City Lake Park. So what we did in this process of really the site selection and design parameters is one we didn't take lightly, and working with Greg and Eric and Damon on this really throughout the last year and a half, I would say, when we started looking at this process. And when we start looking at what we want a senior center or a center for active adults to be today, it's a lot different than the senior center of yesterday or even the senior center on Hamilton. Obviously, we're looking at a bigger population now, not only globally, but here in High Point. A lot of that's due to the baby boomers reaching that age, retirement. You're seeing a lot more active adults now, hence the name, but we're seeing a lot more focus on physical fitness, being outdoors, running. You've probably heard people call and say we need more pickleball courts. A lot of seniors are playing pickleball. So when we started looking at where we need to go, we want to take all that into consideration and what that new senior center will look like. So we started looking at how much money we have invested, or how much money that we had appropriated with the bond, which was $12 million, and then really started focusing in on properties that the city already owned. Obviously, to save that money, obviously we have some options within our own inventory that may work out better for this type of setting when you're looking at a center centered around a park. If you think of our recreation centers, they're built that way. All of our recreation centers are parks, and there's a recreation center on there. So this wouldn't be really any different than those. So these are some of the amenities we started looking at, examples of what may happen in this park type setting. walking trails, outdoor fitness equipment, pickleball courts, even tennis courts, anything that will get people outside, out of the building within that same area. Now, originally, and I don't think it's changed, we were looking at 25 to 30,000 square feet, and I think that's still a good number. I think that's where we need to be. The other factor that I skipped over is, what can we do with more space? And you look at a senior center, you need that infrastructure in your place. You need those drop-off areas. You need accessibility, handicap parking. You need safety. You need lighting. So there's a lot of factors that go into what we're looking at when we look for a new location. So here's our location that we want to bring to you guys and that we're centered in on. And this is where, this is at 503 James Road. And this is currently where we have the Oakview Recreation Center. So if you'll see everything in green, that's what the city owns there. It's in about 5-6 parcels. I'm not sure why it's parceled off that way. We do obviously own all that land. It's 17 plus acres there at Oakview. It's a relatively flat topography. We feel like we can accommodate some of the things we were just discussing as far as kind of this more active environment with a center. We can tie it in a more campus approach with Oakview Recreation Center. With that 17 acres, we could offer a lot as far as some outdoor activities. We could put the center on various areas of the as far as where we want to locate the center. It could be anywhere really within this whole boundary, and we have some ideas as to where they want to go. Feel like it's centrally located. We feel like that was a good space that could be accessible to everybody within the city and the way the city is growing now. So it is served by our transit route as well, so we want everybody to have accessibility and be able to get to this place, this new center as well. So if you look at a couple of sketches, we had a group called Dewberry look at this particular piece of property with us and say, okay, what can we do here? How could we set this up? Now, these are just initial sketches for you guys to take a look at it. But this sketch shows you, in this particular one, it has a senior center or a building attached to Oakview Recreation Center. It does have the outdoor walking trail. It does have pickleball courts. And it does have, obviously, parking improvements. I didn't speak about parking earlier, but the parking needs for not only Oakview, but this center will be pretty vast. So that just gives you an idea of what it could possibly look like, what the trails could look like on site, where the pickleball courts could go, kind of our current setup, and what we could do to improve that area with this more campus-like approach. Now, that building is attached to Oakview, so you could look at some dual programming opportunities. Say we use the recreation center in the morning for senior activities where it's traditionally more activities in the morning as opposed to the afternoon, and it's the opposite for our recreation center with youth in the afternoon. So there are various options that you could do in that particular setup. This is a sketch that shows the building. It's standalone, kind of on the back part of the property. Shows you a little bit more access, a little bit more room to get back there, additional parking. Still shows that approach with trails, fitness equipment, pickleball courts, kind of that same concept, but just another example where we could locate this building in a different location on the particular campus. So really our next steps are really just that consensus on our site preference and really our procurement method and how we get there. Now I will say this is a lot different than where we were with City Lake Park, because with City Lake Park, if you guys will recall, we did have a site master plan. So we kind of had an idea of what it should look like, what it should entail, what amenities should be there. We don't have that for the senior center. We have a good idea of what that would look like, what amenities we need, what the building will look like. We do think it's imperative that we kind of go through a process and ask the community what they'd like to see in a new senior center. And seniors tend to be good about telling us how they feel or what they want. So we feel like we could do that, and with not only with our own program, but do some stuff on social media, tie maybe a meeting or two to our Parks and Recreation Commission meeting, get a little bit more input from the community on what they'd like to see in this new building. That part we handled really with that site plan when we did City Lake Park. So we already had that master plan, so we knew what we wanted to do. Again, we have a good idea, but we think it's important that we take it back to our citizens and ask them what they'd like to see in this particular environment as well. Procurement method, again, decisions we need to make as far as how we want to move forward. Is it a design build? Is it a CMAR approach? Do we straight bid it out? I think we had a lot of success, although we brought Samet in a little late in the process with the construction manager at risk part of that project. But if we bring someone in a little bit earlier, they can be a little bit more involved with the design team as we move forward in design. You can see some of our estimates. You look at about 9 to 12 months to develop the complete plans, design, all the way to construction documentation. And you're looking at construction anywhere from 18 to 24 months. This times out well, although I don't think High Point U is going to kick us out at 5 years and 1 month. This does time out pretty close since we've been there about 2 years in the mall. So this kind of that 3-year process really times out well with probably where we need to be versus our lease, and gives us some time to really do our due diligence and come up with the best plan possible for the senior center. So happy to answer any questions you guys may have. I saw the information I have, but we wanted to bring that potential location to you guys and hopefully move forward on that. But happy to discuss it more or answer any questions y'all may have.
I got a couple of questions.
Yes, sir.
I guess I'll start out with that. How many other locations did you?
You know, Damon and I talked about that the other day. It started with Greg, it moved to Eric, and moved to Damon. So I was trying to think about how many different locations we looked at. I bet we looked at a dozen locations. Y'all correct me if I'm wrong, throughout the entirety of the process, throughout the city, and a lot of them were, again, already city-owned properties.
I don't know if you can actually keep the kind of data of like who goes there, where they come from in the city, how often they visit. Is that anywhere that you can take a look at? And you probably can get where I'm going with this. The location, maybe for some that would like to go, probably it's going to be a transportation, something we have to address if it goes that far north.
Right.
We definitely want to make sure that if you have enough, bodies that actually go there from 3 and 2 and even 1, that we got a way to get them there.
Yeah, and that's why we indicated it is on the transit route. We do understand that accessibility part of it. But we had done a study, now this has been years ago, Chris, where we looked at, and we contracted with a group, this has probably been 10 years ago, where it was more of a space study for seniors, and we looked at where seniors were living in High Point, and kind of did that whole analysis of where they are, where they're coming from to get, as we get to this point, to look at a new senior center. But we did not involve that up to this point, and we haven't done that again in this process.
Thank you.
I have a question. So I'm just curious, out of 12, did y'all think of maybe trying to come up with like maybe a top 3? Or did y'all do that and then go past that process so we could look at what maybe the top 3 options were?
Yeah, I mean, we could go back and share some of where the other options were. That's certainly not a problem, Monica. This one seemed to stand out when we looked at it. As far as the setting, being centrally located, we just felt like this one kind of rose above the others, but certainly can share that information with you as far as some of our locations that we took a look at.
There's quite a few seniors that live along James Road too, I know, and in that general area.
There are. There are. I don't know the exact numbers, but yes,
Yeah,
there are.
there's quite a few in that area. There's some developments, there's quite a few developments that kind of cater to seniors in that area.
And I'll say, because I know over the past several years, whenever I've had a chance to check in, getting some updates on how the location sort of identification was going, and I know it's been an arduous process because there's a number of factors that come into play here. And quite frankly, given all the factors, I think we found an ideal location. The only thing that would have, I think, made it darn near perfect for me is if somehow it could have been on the Greenway, like attached or very adjacent and in close proximity to where the Greenway is. Obviously, we can't, have cake and eat it too, right? But maybe that presents an opportunity at some point where, I don't know, many years down the road, if we look at expansion of the Greenway going that way, that I could see being really, really awesome.
Yeah, And that focus on being outdoors, Cyril, you're exactly right. That's what we're seeing and we're hearing with seniors. That's what we're seeing across the state and across the country. So to be able to develop these trails, believe it or not, you can tie some pretty good trails into a 17-acre campus. So we wanted to make sure that was part of the design moving forward, or at least the initial plans. Outdoor fitness equipment, although if you had asked me about that 10 years ago, I'd said nobody's using that anymore. Now you're starting to see that come back out. So really that outdoor fitness approach is there. So something that's a little bit more confined like Oakview, you at least have the opportunity to provide some of those type of amenities on the site.
Is this site fenced? Is it fenced around the perimeter of that site? I mean, what?
It is
what would
not.
we
It
do to
goes-
that site for security?
It's not fenced right now. Obviously it's wooded in the back. In that far corner next to the school, we have our community garden there, Jay. Our tennis courts are closer to the center. We have two athletic fields there. One's kind of on the lower end where we do a lot of softball. The upper one, we don't get as much uses, as much as we used to. So that would be obviously a good opportunity for development in that
Maybe there's
particular
fencing
area.
along the road there,
Yeah, I
along
think
James Road.
yeah, I'm not quite sure how far it goes along the back side of that property.
Yeah.
But it goes all the way on
Just a thought for security purposes, if we're gonna have folks walking through the woods,
Yeah.
wanna make sure they feel safe.
yeah, we can take care of that in the design.
Any other questions for staff?
I think it's a great location. It is a lot of available land.
Yeah, it
It's
is.
got a lot of open space there to use. I think it's a great location. James Road comes easy from north or south, connects, all four directions, very easy. I'm real happy with this. It's a great addition there. That's a very used rec center as well. That's a
Yeah, it
very
is.
Popular rec center.
It is. It's one of our older recreation centers, so, maybe we could tie in some updates and things like that, but it is just like all of them now, they get a lot of use. And Oakview is certainly no different than the rest of them, yeah.
Thank you, Lee.
All right, thank you.
Okay, next item on the agenda is a closed session for attorney-client privilege. I need a motion to that effect.
Closed session.
A motion,
Second.
and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Okay. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Anyone opposed? That motion passes unanimously.
back on?
We're not out of closed session.
Oh, they haven't moved us out?
Yeah, we gotta come out first.
Okay, and you make sure you get a bowl.
No,
It looks like they got us audio.
We're on.
I'll move my bag. up
Motion
there.
to adjourn special meeting.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to adjourn the special meeting. Any debate on the motion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, that motion passes, and the special meeting is adjourned. And we'll reconvene at 5:30 for our regular meeting.